So in this final stretch of the class Programming for Engineers, so we'll focus on a concrete example for getting some COVID data off the web and then plotting that in Bokeh, both in a plain way and in an interactive way. So this is going to be the structure of the next few videos. First of all, the first stage will be to look at how to go on a website and extract some data out of that website. So this is already a website that does some display of COVID numbers, but instead of just taking the plot the way that is done there, we look at way to just get the raw numbers so that we can make our own plot and be in control of the way things are being shown. So then to do the display, we'll use the Bokeh library. This is a fairly recent library. You can do plots like this. Here you see two versions of the plots that we're going to focus on, having dates. In this case, we're comparing three different countries. Italy is kind of where I'm from. USA is where I'm living now. And Brazil is a country I visited several times. I have many friends. And so, and also they have very different evolutions of COVID. And so it's kind of potentially interesting to make comparison, and from an engineering perspective, how to make sure that those comparisons kind of properly calibrated. And then to conclude from a plot like this, we look at how to make it interactive, build a kind of a very basic user interface. And although this is very simple in this case, it kind of gives a guideline for how to build something generically for an application. You can have a couple of buttons, a menu, things like that. Just to give an example. So this is the same plot that you are seeing here in the slide. And now here, to make it interesting, for example, let's say we take the same three countries. So here I have the list of the countries in alphabetical order. So let's say we get Italy. This is the plot. And now instead of having two plots side by side, we can say this is, we do the daily deaths per million people over time, or the cumulative. So the plot has to be monotonic. And so here you see that each spike here correspond to a big increase. And then when the daily deaths are low, then you get a plateau in each plot and go on. And so let's look at adding kind of the US. So here we do control click. We add the second country. So here you can see that Italy started earlier. The initial spikes actually were much bigger in Italy and interesting than Italy. But then there is like a third spike that happened in the US that it did not happen in Italy. They are trying to control. So in Italy, there is still a lot of control over people circulation and so on. And here you see that kind of what's interesting, though, if you look at the cumulative numbers, they kind of cross each other on and off. The overall trend is actually surprisingly similar. And so at different stages with different spikes, they kind of got in different state. And so here I can go up and get then as a third example, Brazil. So going back to the daily one, so for example, Brazil got hit significantly later. So here we have February, May, so we're talking about maybe a couple of months delay. Their first spike was not that big. Then later on, they had a very large spike. So they had two. So in Italy, they were like two cycles. The second one had actually two sub-cycles, if you will. The US has clearly three stages. Brazil had 2, but the second one was actually much bigger. Now, if you look at the cumulative numbers, so this is going to reset the plot. So this is the plots you can modify. You can, with the tool, zoom in a particular area if you want to examine a certain time range and so on. And clicking this, you go to reset the view. And so you see that now Brazil is in red. And due to the last spike now, it's has a greater number. So here we're talking about Italy and the USA have something around the 2,400 people died per million, and Brazil is kind of getting close to 3,000. Anyway, so that interesting, the other one is fixed for a few number. So here in principle, we can add more countries to do a comparison. Obviously, that's not necessarily a good idea. They have too many plots, but in terms of the flexibility and having buttons and so on, so this is kind of an easy way to create components in a visualization environment, do the actual rendering, selecting option and so on, so that one can build an application around something like this. And this is, by the way, it's a Jupyter notebook, so it's just plain Python code. So going back to the first part is, we are going to focus now on, so this is going to be the following videos. The first stage is kind of how do we get the numbers? And so first of all, I want to give a sense that some people are intimidated by some of those topics, like going out, fetching data from a website, parsing and getting numbers. It may sound like a daunting task. The reality is that all it needs is these 2 pages of code. This is kind of the main file where we're going to look at the website now. This is kind of just say this is the main website. Those are the nations. So let me just highlight this. So this is the website. We're going to just now look at the website directly to get a sense of what needs to be done. We're now focusing on the 3 nations of interest. So this is where I'm putting the data here manually. In the interactive case, we'll also collect this data automatically to have all the countries. And in fact, we can filter, I think in the current version, I have only country with more than 10 million people. And then it's a simple loop. You go loop over the countries that you're interested in and just scrape one by one. This is the module that is just the next slide. And then here I even print the results. So very simple. We'll go over this again. And this is the module where we scrape the data set. So this is how to scrape a nation. This uses a couple of utility functions, one to read the actual number and one to skip lines that are of interest.